this feels like a really potent and dynamic moment for INGOs and for civil society power dynamics and sort of evolution per se. So obviously, you know, Nana's mentioned some of those massive shifts we've had in the last couple of years through the pandemic, how geography has shifted and changed in those times. We are all experiencing the sort of explosion in tech and how that brings really different and new ways of doing business, whether you be a bilateral or a local civil society organisation or an INGO or a consultant. So the context in which we're working, in which INGOs are working, is really fluid, really dynamic, really disruptive, and feels very unique and important to sort of reflect on and try and make sense of a little bit. So that's the context in which we're working. But of course, the challenges that INGOs have been trying to tackle traditionally are also exploding. So the enormity of the climate crisis, the enormity of sort of, and the shifts in the human rights challenges, you know, the fake news and a lot of the social media challenges that civil society in general is just really grappling with, are really complicated and as I say, sort of rapidly evolving. So it feels like a really explosive time in many senses. INGOs have made some efforts and some significant efforts to adapt to that context, I would say. And, you know, there is a lot of soul searching going on within the INGO sector and in broader civil society. It's a bit of a reckoning moment, would be my sense. So obviously the Black Lives Matter movement, the sort of spotlight on the need for decolonization, the spotlight on race issues, the spotlight on sort of shifts in domestic funding support, and how, you know, the sort of levers between international funding and domestic funding in funder publics and governments are playing out, have been challenging. Safeguarding has been a big disruption, as we know. Some of the scandals in the UK sector in particular have been very disruptive. So I'm just sort of putting all of that on the table, if you like, to give you a bit of the context of both the space that INGOs are working in individually, but also the context within which we've come into as a RINGO team to try and sort of make sense of, if you like. But before I move on and tell you a little bit about that, I just wanted to also just remind ourselves that the INGOs come in all shapes and sizes, so and from all different histories. So I think our preconception, particularly as people are connected with, I think, Bond and FCDO being the main conveners of this space, you know, our preconception is the big guys, the Oxfams, the Save the Children's, etc., and the history that goes alongside those UK-rooted, now global organisations. But of course, there are tiny INGOs, and you and FCDO have worked particularly in that space, and others on the call, such as Comic Relief and others, have worked with small and medium-sized international NGOs as well. So I just wanted to sort of remind ourselves of the scale diversity as well. And of course, we have a preconception of our sort of UK-centric, Western-centric view of INGOs, which may have been true for a while, but certainly won't be true going forwards.